probably be good. It's just-
Okay, so you already have some of these copies
Right.
of the policies, and
Right.
but I just, in my mind, I just want you to have them right then and there, and you know, so they are duplicates, so I just want you to know that. The last time we were together, we met on, my understanding was, cross-reference 1240, we just continued to say we were gonna hold off on.
Right.
We were working on 3330.
Right.
You have lots of revisions happening there. I felt like you were probably 75% close to being done.
Okay.
With the idea that once this was finished, then I'm sending this, I'll take out all the edits, and then, we're sending this to parents for feedback, so we don't have feedback on this one yet.
Right.
And then, we were looking at, 3340, I think Ramona was working on this one while you were kinda tackling 3330. And then you asked me to, do another draft of the 3360, so I drafted a totally different version. I looked
Good.
off of Coeur d'Alene's version, so just so that you guys can kinda see that and then make whatever tweaks. And we kind of put a laundry list of things, like let's put the table of contents in there, so I just put everything we talked about, and we said we would look at it and see how we like the, logistics of how it looks, and then make potential changes. So I feel like those were the kind of three that we were tackling.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
I think
does.
so, yeah. I don't remember the 3340. I do remember talking about it, but I don't.
Yeah, and I don't remember if we made, revisions yet, or we were just talking about it, cause it was a
Well,
cross-reference.
I know one of the I don't know if it was 3330 or 3340, but one of them, we requested input from ISBA because they don't identify any
Right,
federal policies.
and you got a response from them, and it was basically nothing.
It was basically, you're on your own,
Yeah.
which seems ridiculous, but it is what it is. Well, I guess maybe we should revisit 3330, see if we can, see if we
Get
can,
that finalized.
yeah, that would be good. Oh, maybe it was it,
3330 was the student discipline one.
right. Search and seizures.
Yeah, cause we took off the detention, including Saturdays, and,
Okay, so what's this one?
and this was the one where then we brought up the whole, what's the language in the handbooks, and,
Right, and the language in the handbooks needs to reflect what the policy says, only, not elaborated on.
Right.
Because that creates its own problems.
right. And you actually added the language in here, and we put that in green just to delineate a difference.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yep.
okay.
And there were two parts that you guys highlighted, so there was a part of the delegation of authority where it says impose any disciplinary measure, we highlighted. That reentry contract, remember we had that whole discussion about, do we call it a show cause, it is a
Right,
reentry,
right,
what's that
right.
going to look like? And then, Ramona, I think you highlighted the restorative school practices, that's part
Yeah.
of the alternative disciplinary measure.
Yeah, because, we don't have any policy that addresses, restorative practices, or any understanding of how
What
it's.
that entails.
Yeah, so, and that is something that, a board, whatever board that may have been, should have approved, and the policy should have been created. So, I mean, it needs to be fixed, in my opinion, but, I'm not sure,
Next steps.
yeah, well, the next step would obviously be a policy and then I would
that
say.
includes a definition.
Yeah, I would say a procedure, but more of a procedural understanding, not the literal procedure of,
Right.
not, saying this is what you will or won't do kind of thing, but just so that the public and the board understands how the staff, and then the other thing, whenever I think of these things, I think of, professional development, to make sure that everybody, and that would probably in my mind be a procedural understanding about how the professional development works with this, because I just believe that this type of policy or this type of resource should have professional development with it, so that people really understand the expectation and the
That we're
implementation
calibrated in
and,
that process.
yeah.
So what, do you want me to bring this to Dr. Meyer, do you want me to reach out to ISBA and see if they have anything around it? Cause it kinda feels like it could be encompassed in this policy, since it references it, but
Well, I
do you feel
think
like
the
it needs to be a
ref-
standalone?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it needs to be a standalone, and because there was, if I remember right, I'm trying to remember, I believe there was conversation at one point, and the rebuttal was, or the answer, not rebuttal, but the answer to the question in the conversation was that, well, there is no policy regarding that, and I think it came from legal counsel.
Okay.
And they were like, you need to have this in place, but then we didn't get there. So that is something that I think that I feel like we do need to address. I was just looking here, there is the federal government, the Department of Education compiles typically annually, although I cannot find this year, I found last year's. It's a compilation of school discipline laws and regulations. And there may be something in that we can draw from, and
Okay.
the other thing is because they do address corporal punishments, search and seizure, restraint and seclusion, expulsion, blah, 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 all these kinds of things.
From the Department of Ed, the federal?
Yeah, and I have that, I guess I can throw it in, we download this and I can actually put it, I already did download it, so I need to put it. Because it seems like this topic is, which I think is extremely important topic, but it doesn't seem that we have, the thoroughness I was expecting anyways. Not the district, but just the industry as a whole, So that might give us some insight.
Well, there are a lot of books out there, I have a few of them around restorative practices, and it's more about just.
Oh, I'm extremely familiar with restorative practices. There's, there's quite a few great roundtables by those who, created, developed.
Terminology.
The actual, what restorative practices are, restorative justice, whatever you want to call them. But anyways, I was just thinking overall discipline and all that kinds of things. Let me see here, what was that, 3330, is that the one? I will put that,
Okay. Yeah, cause in this 3330, we do talk about, we've added the language of restorative school practices, but we don't have anything specific to them.
right.
Yeah, that's why I asked, do we incorporate it in this, or is it a standalone? Or is it in both?
Right.
I think the reference to it is fine, I think, and then we just, I feel like anyways, the board can make the decision, but I feel that it's mentioned, and then like all our other policies, then it's referenced at the bottom. And that, you know, then whomever can look up whatever they're trying to look for. And the board might have a different idea, but my thought in that is that if things need to be changed, we're not changing, you know.
Right.
I
So
just see it as a standalone.
Okay, so I guess my question is, two things, do you want me to start playing around with a procedural understanding that maybe gives somewhat of a definition, and then if there's like action steps, but is there a source particularly you'd like me to pull that from?
No, I think it just
Okay.
needs to be what the district, you know, kind of how the district
Okay,
does it.
so I can bring that to us next week and we can kind of look
Yeah,
at it,
that,
okay?
yeah. I just think it needs to be, you know, about Lakeland
Right,
and,
okay.
you know.
Yeah, what it is and what it isn't.
Right, exactly.
Well, I'm reading through the alternative discipline measure on this policy 3330, and I'm a little confused. Because I think we're stating something that we don't have control over. But it says alternative disciplinary action is discipline other than traditional suspension or expulsion from school that is designed to correct and address the root causes of a student's specific misbehavior while retaining the student in class or school, or restorative school practices to repair the harm done to the relationships and persons from the student's misbehavior. Alternative discipline includes, but is not limited to, reflective activities such as requiring the student to write an essay about the student's misbehavior, mediation when there is mutual conflict between peers rather than one-way negative behavior, counseling, anger management, help counseling or intervention, mental health counseling, participation in skills building and resolution activities such as social, emotional, cognitive skills building, resolution and restorative conferencing, diversion or use of juvenile specialty courts, behavioral management plan, corrective instruction or other relevant learning or service experience, community service, and in-school detention or suspension which may take place, I cannot read today, during lunchtime, after school or on weekends. Okay, have a problem with some of those words.
I agree.
Just saying.
Well, and I'm a big advocate of, if you say it, you have to mean it, and some of this, if you can't enforce it, then you shouldn't
Right.
say it, so,
Right.
and the other, I am also a big advocate, and so we've had situations and principals will call me, I feel like it's always about partnering with the parents, as far as, okay, so this is what's happened, these are the facts, this is what we know to be the truth, let's talk about how are we shaping that behavior. It's really not punitive, it's about, these are kids, they're gonna make mistakes, they need to learn from their lessons.
Right.
Like, how do we do that? And, you know, parents know their kids best, so what's the best, you know, instead of just automatically going, we're gonna take their recess away, is that really what that kid needs, or is there something else that's gonna be more powerful in the sense that they're gonna learn the good and the bad and the ugly of whatever happened, so. But a lot of this you have no control over it.
Right.
As a
And,
principal, you literally could not enforce this.
right, so we need to work on this language,
Yeah.
because it's not, kosher.
Well, and a lot of this, I feel like you'd have to attach a definition to.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is supposed to be about discipline.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay, so when we're referring to restorative school practices, what is that?
It really is, I mean, I guess I should speak to the elementary side of this, and we could call Lisa specific to the secondary side of it. It's a lot of conflict resolution, to be honest with you. We're just working through trying to understand the why and support them, and if they're having a rough day, are their needs not being met, you know, some of Maslow's kinds of stuff, like, are you just hungry, are you having a bad day? it is conferencing, it's not always appropriate to pull both kids in, you know, so it's really just trying to understand the why and then support the child and through whatever difficulty they're having, that's what a lot of it is.
Okay,
Sometimes it's that pragmatic piece of a social encounter that they're struggling with. They didn't get chosen on the football team they want, so it's just kind of working through some of those that little kids struggle with. And again, but that would be under a conferencing type of situation, you're trying to understand the why and help them see a perspective that maybe they're not seeing to help them navigate that situation.
okay, but if we're saying alternative disciplinary action is discipline other than traditional suspension or expulsion from school that is designed to correct and address the root causes of student-specific misbehavior while retaining the student in class or school, isn't it sufficient?
Well, I would even go up and say it's traditional disciplinary measures, doesn't that encompass it? We kind of say all those things up there, do we need both of them? Do we need the alternative disciplinary measure? We could add some of the, counseling or conferencing with teacher or whatever, but you need to have both of those categories.
Well, what if it just became disciplinary measures
Right.
include and merge them?
Yeah,
Flipping back to the alternative disciplinary measures, which should be there. Okay. I don't know that we can require, I mean, who's gonna be teaching anger management in the school?
well, who's qualified to teach that too? That would be my
Exactly.
question. Yeah, I don't think that's a good one.
Um,
I think it would be our counselors, but we're not teaching anger management, it's perspective taking, and it's situational to that incident, it's not a global.
Great.
This isn't therapeutic, and nor should it,
It shouldn't be.
we shouldn't allude to a therapy, because we're not qualified to do that.
Well, I mean, what's the difference first between counseling,
Right.
mental health
Right,
we're just throwing
Yeah.
words on this paper that,
right. Well, and if, this is in black, so this has been ISBA and policy, so they're just throwing
I know,
these words
I know,
around. I
but-
agree.
I don't understand how counseling or mental health counseling or health counseling or
Right.
intervention are even disciplinary measures.
Right. It's a support that you would put in a behavior plan that you're giving for this family, but this is the other piece, you really can't even have this conversation until you've had a conversation with parents and
Correct.
to see if this is even something if, I always call parents and if we're gonna have the counselor intervene and have a conversation, are you okay with this?
Right. We can't state that they're gonna do diversion
Nope,
or
you
use
can't have
juvenile
zero
specialty
control
courts.
of that. Corrective instruction or other relevant learning, or that, I don't even know what that
I
means.
don't either.
And in school, that we already know that in school suspend or detention. And we're definitely not keeping people on weekends. So, again, when was the last time?
Well, I don't know that we can require a student to do community service. I mean,
You can't do any of it. That's the thing, is you can't state this as a fact and say, our perception is you were wrong, and because you were wrong, here's what you must do. We cannot do that,
okay.
Now, we could, if we're gonna pay for all of it,
Right.
well,
Yeah, we
if we're
can do
gonna
what we
pay
want,
for it,
yeah.
we can then say, this has gotten beyond the point, you must get mental health counseling or whatever, but,
The moment you
if you
start
say-
requiring it,
Right.
you're obligated.
Right, if we start saying, you have to go to XYZ counseling or whatever, then, but I understand there has to be discipline, and I understand everybody needs a tool to work with, and I'm glad to hear the, conglomerative effort, the team effort with the parent and all that. That's great, because it is their child, the child doesn't belong to the school district.
Right.
But I just feel like the system, and I've already told Welcome to Public Education, I don't believe that. The system, is too heavy-handed into mental health and into all these, what may be cultural differences. I mean, obviously, we've got kids throwing chairs and cussing and yelling. I mean, those are very obvious kinds of things.
But then honestly, that's where it goes, not to use this word, but that's that traditional concept, then you're looking at suspension and.
Right,
Yeah.
you know, so I just have I even have a problem with the whole reflective activity, writing the paper, the mediation. I don't know what that looks like. I mean, what does that mean? You know, at what time does it become enough? How do we know that, you know, is it just a matter of somebody's opinion and their perception based upon their own bias of whether the child is actually sincere or not sincere? I mean, the whole thing is bias in, there's too much, in my opinion, there's too much, that's not stated. You know, it's just way too broad. I mean, the in-school detention, suspension thing is pretty, straightforward. And I think that we should say that none of these things takes place without, parental consent and,
So I can tell you, I mean, again, I don't know
conversation
if
or
this is
whatever.
different, if it's, I mean, older kids I think are different.
Mhm.
And then I would wanna speak to what they do,
Mhm.
because it's not firsthand knowledge for me. I'm not there when they're doing it, so
Right,
I feel
right.
like I can speak to the elementary side of it. So, you know, we have a situation where two kids are out at recess, like, football's a perfect example. It's a little rough, kids are upset. And so we can just say globally, okay, football's off the table for the rest of the week, you guys aren't playing nicely, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
But then we're punishing the whole
Everybody.
instead of the few that maybe were taking it too far. And so when those kinds of things happen, typically I will pull the kids in and let's talk about what's going on, let's talk about the football rules, let's talk about blah, blah, blah. If you wanna be able to play football, you know, that kind of a thing. So maybe mediation's not the right word, maybe it is just a conversation. And my rule has always been, if I have to intervene as the principal, then I always call the parents, even if it's a good thing. I would wanna know if my kid's
Right.
gonna go to the principal's office, and so if I'm intervening or if the PA is intervening, then, and it's just talking to the parents, if we're going to attach a punitive action of some kind of like, okay, we are taking football away for a couple of days, or, you know, then we typically call parents and just say, this is what we're thinking, what are your thoughts about this, what, you know, do you have a different idea, so that they're a part of that conversation. But there are a lot of times where parents will ask us, can you do, we're struggling with this is their best friend and it's two girls and they're struggling with relationship, can you have the counselor pull them in? And then we would, you know, obviously call the second parent and say, is this something that you want or whatever, or can you do some conflict resolution, the girls are struggling, whatever. So, some of the stuff on here, we do get requested to do it, by the parents because, you know, they tried and they're still struggling,
Right.
kind of a thing. And so again, if there's two parties involved, both parents are involved in that conversation. But it's really it's really a conversation, you
Right,
know?
right, yeah.
It's
And I
not
have no
some
problem with any of that.
mental health
Right,
therapeutic, I guess, is
Right.
what I'm saying. It
Mhm.
is just a conversation, and sometimes it's working through conflict and having, you know, like I used to pull the girls in when they were struggling in 5th and 6th grade and just say, how you're feeling is normal. You know, you're going to have situations where somebody is jealous of your outfit, or you have curly hair and I have straight hair, and today I like your curly hair more than, and so then we don't always act kindly, or we don't always say something, and sometimes it's hurtful, but are you guys friends? So it's more friendship based.
Yeah.
But again, I'm talking to the parents, like, this is happening, are you comfortable with me pulling them in and having
Right.
conversations with the girls about friendship, and not really about the negative side of it, but just let's value girls and let's be uplifting, let's be the friend that we all want our other friends to be, and let's not do we're talking out of both sides and that kind of a thing.
Right, yeah, and I believe that, and I believe that's how
Yeah.
you approach it, and probably anybody that you've had opportunity to, teach or model these types, what your expectation, I totally get that. On the other hand, there have been instances within the district where that has not been the case.
Right.
And that's what obviously, that's an
How
admin
do we,
thing too,
how do
right,
we reflect, how does this reflect that practice? Yeah, I
right.
get what you're saying.
Yeah, so I think you should come, get it with my own, come together, talk about what is that, okay, everybody shake hands, whatever.
Right, but sometimes parents don't, there's bigger conflict with parents and they don't want that, and so I do think that, again, I'm an advocate of hear all perspectives, see it through all lens, and then you guys make a decision, you and the parent, because there might be outside, environmental factors that are playing a part that you have no idea about. And so bringing the kids together, maybe the parent has said they can't be friends.
Right.
And so then you're trying to foster this and the parent is against it for whatever reason. So I think parents are key to this. As far as what you're, because we have some parents that say, if my kid has been doing this, and this in class, I want them to stay after.
So I guess there again, is what's missing from this. Outside of some of the language being more therapeutic, like you were saying, is that there's no procedure. And I don't know if that's what the board or not, like, how long do these things take place, right? Like, are we doing it by minutes for the year of the age? Are we doing it by, I don't know, I guess you just have to trust the adults to do the right thing,
Well, the other piece is, is every time you're intervening, it is, most of the time, it's following, a natural break. So if there's been an issue, it's gonna be because of recess or something. That's a lot of, at least for elementary, that's a huge part of it. And, just the dynamics of kids figuring out how to play together. And so this is happening during instructional time.
Right.
So if it's not swift and quick and fast, then, we're losing 20 to 30 minutes if you're not quick about it, which that adds up.
Yes, it does.
So being mindful, I think you always have to be mindful of where that plays a part.
Where is,
I love how we'll have a conversation and you can just capture the essence of it and start fixing it.
Sorry.
It's perfect. Oh no, seriously. I'm afraid my computer's on its last leg.
That's not good. So far, the only thing I pulled out there was reflective activities, because that would be something,
I'm just gonna pull up something really fast.
so did we not have any feedback on the 3330?
Remember, we're doing it after the fact.
Oh, okay.
Because we wanted to have a clean draft, so
Oh, right.
as soon as you guys tell me we're good to go, remember we talked about, I would,
Yeah,
send
we
out
tried
the,
it different ways.
we'll take out all of the edits, and so it'll just be the clean version version with this is the draft, and then we'll send out the second, this is what we currently have, so they can see it side by side, and then they'll give us feedback based on that. Because all the color coding was too hard for people to understand.
Right.
But we could do it differently if you'd like.
No, I'm fine with that.
I'm just curious, well, and maybe I'm overthinking this. How is a disciplinary measure, okay, so, Rosanna, do you wanna pull up our policy draft 3330 from the drive? Yeah, scroll. Okay, so you can stop there. That highlighted yellow was actually number 10, but because those were all using, possessing, distributings, I just moved it, or using, possessings, whatever. I moved it below that to keep them together. And then if you can scroll down. Okay, I lined that part out because it's just shortening it. So tasing is defined by Idaho code. You can keep scrolling. Oh, thank you. I love it.
Are you guys cold in here?
It is a little chilly, but I'm not everything. Okay, so under disciplinary measures, I took out the traditional. Just make it disciplinary measures. But I kind of blended the two paragraphs, which disciplinary measures are designed to correct and address students' misbehavior and include but are not limited to the following. And then I added, though I didn't change anything there, however, I am concerned with notification to juvenile authorities and or police. Only because that's not a discipline measure, that's, a safety measure. I mean, if someone's behavior is so.
Well, there's a mandate too, if it's something that you have to report.
Yeah.
Cause it honestly, I mean, in my mind, that would be the same as if you were having to do a CPS or
Right.
any and all of that,
Right.
yeah.
So I don't know that that's necessarily a disciplinary measure.
That's a reporting mechanism.
Now, the meeting with student and students' parents, that's not a disciplinary measure, that is just a procedural
Procedural,
behavior that we need to follow. It shouldn't be optional. And then I did add reflective activities and community service activity within the school building, but I don't know if that's what we mean by calling it cleanup duty. Because, like, I know at the elementary level, one of my grandsons loves to help the lunch lady because she gives him candy, and you can win that boy's heart with candy. And so he just chooses not to go out to recess and help the kitchen lady because, he gets his candy. But apparently it's a thing for all the kids and whatever. But I don't know. I took that out of those are the only two that I could really feel personally out of that laundry list of things that could really be considered a disciplinary measure to benefit someone's thought processes to think I shouldn't maybe do that.
Right.
I don't know. I need input and direction here.
Yeah, I think if it's, some of the reporting, to your guys' point, that is procedural.
Right.
So I think that should be taken out. I guess the only other thing I feel like is it doesn't say anything about the parent piece.
No, and so what I did also I was trying to, under if you want to scroll to the next page, there we go. Okay, under
I can't even believe this is still in here, that it's a thing.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say something to the effect of, that should be measures implemented, all disciplinary measures implemented. so I need help with the wording, because if, you know, there's an incident on the playground and the teachers are like, oh, okay, well, here's the thing. Yesterday, my youngest grandson, apparently a girl slapped him, so, you know, just hit him on the shoulder, whatever, so he walked like that, and here, little dish. So he got in trouble, the girl did not, but he got in trouble because, you know, he put his hands on the girl and hit her in the butt. And he had to go sit in the office. And you have to understand, it was Malachi. And he's just
What grade?
first grade.
And he had to go in the office?
Yeah, he had to go sit in the office. And he was like, and I almost had to go talk to the principal, but they just had me sit in the office and think about what I did. He goes, so, I didn't think about it, Grandma. I thought about a lollipop. I'm like, okay, buddy, I hear ya. But first he presented it to me like, I was just giving somebody a high five. Like, come to find out, because when his mom came to pick him up, I'm like, did you know? I said, Melanie got in trouble for giving a kid a high five? And she's like, no. So she told me what happened, but my point is he obviously did something he wasn't supposed to do. And
the little girl.
correct, but I'm just focusing on this.
Right, well, you can control.
Yeah, so what happened was, we can't do that, you broke the rules, so go to the office, okay? There wasn't parent involvement with that. There was a follow-up to the parent, she works at the school, she's
Right.
like, just so you know. But what I don't wanna do is put language in here where people and administrators feel like, well, we can't do anything until we call the parent.
Right, no, and I agree. I mean,
Because
that's,
some things are that simple.
well, and you don't, I was just gonna say that, like, and I don't know the whole story. I mean, there's definitely situations where, there's an adult out there and it could be a quick, like, there's a conversation and you're separating them.
Right.
And because kids are going to do things and
Right.
they're all teachable moments, and so it doesn't have to be this big production. And,
Right.
you know, when my kids were in school and at my same school, I would always tell their teachers, I don't wanna know anything that you wouldn't tell a normal parent. So that doesn't work in the school, because I
Right.
want them to be able to be kids. And
Right.
so, and the same for your grandkids, cause just because your daughter's there doesn't mean that
Right.
everything should get reported to her, cause their kids are going to do stuff.
Yeah.
And so you want there to be freedom for it's a conversation, right? In my mind though, if it's at the level where there is an extended amount of time that they're removed from their classroom and or the administration is involved, parents should be a part of that conversation.
Okay, so.
Don't you think? Because you'd wanna know, you know,
Oh,
and
yeah.
even if it's not, in my opinion, and even if it's not that your child was the one that potentially was the person involved, but they're a witness, you're still pulling a child out for an extended amount of time as you're trying to do that investigative piece. I think parents should know. I pulled your child in, I had to ask him about this, because there's always fallout from, you know, if you're the witness, and, I mean, I think parents should be aware of those kinds of things.
So the United School District pretty much took all that kind of stuff out. They took out all
Did they?
the delineation of this, and
They just do a narrative, and it's just
Yeah.
a quick narrative.
they did do, you know, here's, you know, the guilty of gross disobedience or misconduct include but are not limited to, so they did cover that.
Right.
But then they just went into the disciplinary measures, which was the expulsion, suspension, blah, blah, blah. And then the gun-free zone and the possession on school property kind of thing, and that was it. They took everything else out of it.
So yeah, because we definitely want parents to understand that they're,
I don't know what the difference is or what draft we're using, but there was, I I don't think I have a most recent, but there was a change in this policy that was updated in 2019.
This is the draft we're going off from ISBA is, hold on, I'll pull it up.
Oh, here's the ISB for the 21st.
I think it's the most updated one, that's what we pulled from.
The 2021.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah, because here's another school district, that's,
Yeah,
they just pretty much adopted.
it is. I guess my question is, do you feel like we have to have a laundry list of possibilities, or if you, like the school district that you suggested, is that narrative enough, or is it not transparent enough? If you
Yeah,
do it
I
that
think
way.
there should be some kind of
Example?
Yeah, of what they can expect, you know, that these are the things that may happen.
Yeah.
And I think it might give, I mean, although teachers and admin and all that are well versed in this, but at least, I mean, maybe it gives them a little bit of, here's the parameters I work within kind of thing. Oh, yep, the policy does say this, or,
Mhm.
that kind of,
Yeah, I mean, I like the way you worded that, cause we don't have to make little things big deals, and they happen all the
Exactly.
time. You
And-
don't wanna tie people's hands.
No, but I also think that if it is an issue, then definitely get the parent involved. For sure.
what's an extended period of time?
I know, I was thinking about that, what constitutes an extended period of time?
And there again, I guess it's different from the elementary level versus the secondary, right? Because they're switching
Right.
classes all the time.
Right.
I mean,
I actually think, I don't think it makes a difference. I think if you're, you know, like, if you're gonna have a kid out of an entire period at
Mhm.
secondary,
Mhm.
that equates to, you know, 45 or 50 minutes.
Yeah.
I think that's the same at elementary. It's one thing if it's a 10 or 15 minute,
right.
I'm just asking you a quick question.
Mhm.
But if it's an extended period, like it's 45 minutes, I kind of feel like, you know, because what's gonna happen, so I miss math now, right? I miss direct instruction of math time. I'm gonna have to go home, and either my teacher is gonna be able to fill me in on that, or I'm gonna have to go home. I'm gonna go home and tell my parents, like, oh, yeah, I was in math, 'cause I was in the office.
Right.
And so if you're not proactive, well, I would follow up with the school the next day and just say, oh, so-and-so said they were in the office, what was going on? And even if the child explains it, you'd still wanna know.
Right.
So I just feel like be preventative and call the parent and tell them, you know, they were just a witness, or I needed to get some clarification and it just took a little bit longer. You know,
So what if we corrected that language to, in the event the child is removed from the classroom for the duration of the class period?
Mhm.
Is that sufficient to give a clear picture, or?
Well, I think that tackles secondary, but what would that be at, the elementary level? And there again, I sort of hate to put like a
number,
45
yeah.
minutes, because
Right.
then we have the whole, well, it wasn't 45 minutes, they were only 20 minutes.
So
or-
most of our blocks, so like yellow, I mean, you know, it's roughly that, you might do
Oh, there we
60
go,
minutes,
or
so,
block.
you know, so. But some of this is, you know, we're not gonna be able to make it black and white, because there are some situations where you pull the kid out for 20 minutes, but it's imperative that the parent's part of it.
Yeah,
So
right.
we're just saying that you have to, but there's gonna be scenarios where the parent should be involved from the get-go.
Yeah. Well, and we could just leave the extended, the thing that you wrote,
Period of
extended
time.
period of time, and then just discuss it, see what comes back from,
From the admin team.
yeah, and the public, and what is the board, that, you know, maybe a note so we remember, that, you know, this is, maybe a discussion we want to have with them.
So if we worded it this way,
I like it, I just feel like there's a lot of ors.
Yeah.
For an extended period of time, or for the duration of the class period, or.
yes.
But I like all those pieces.
Well, maybe it needs to be, in the event the child's removed from the classroom, colon, or something, or an A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, or something, and then the rest of the explanation.
Okay.
You know, like, here's the bullet points of what, I mean, I don't know.
You could say in the event a child is removed from the classroom, and then A for extended period of time, B for duration, C or 1, 2, 3.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm following you, but it's a slow day for me.
Yeah, no, I get it.
No, I'm just kind of.
I think we're all ready for some sunshine.
Yeah,
I was so happy when I looked at the weather this morning.
yeah.
So happy. And my oldest is coming home.
Oh, yay.
I know, I haven't seen him in a few weeks, so I'm super excited.
Yeah.
And I just can't even believe it, like his first year of college is almost done.
I know, it goes fast.
It does.
Yeah.
It does go fast.
Okay, so let's lay down some things here.
So we say, did they have the word child or did they have the word student? What does it say? That's another thing, they never have
It should be
a,
student.
I think it should say student,
yeah, everything else does have student. Oh.
You could fill out ideas too.
Yes, please.
Oh, can I?
Yes.
I had a question about, the extended period of time. Does that include instructional minutes? Are you guys familiar with that term, or is that just the kind
No, that's what I'm talking about specific to that. If anytime you're doing anything, and again, just logistically, it always falls after, when it's during instructional time, it's never during their time. It's not in the morning, it's not at recess, it never happens that way. So just being super mindful of that we are pulling kids out of class during their instructional time.
So I just didn't know if there was any criteria or anything on the federal level that would affect the.
There are, it's not specific to a day or specific to a week, we have to have so much, instructional time allotted, per subject. So, and we're always way over that, but I just think it's important that if we're pulling a kid out, and again, it's not 5 or 10 minutes, parents should be in the know.
No, I was just wondering if there was
Yeah.
ramifications, like from the federal.
There could be if we
Government to
didn't make
district.
our minutes, yeah, there could be. And I don't actually think it's federal, I think it's state, but there are requirements, so it's the same. It's not just a California thing. But you speak up too. When I first did this, I sat here quietly. They were saying, you can talk.
Okay, so we're
We're on
contact
team.
that.
I like that feels like there's a little more narrative attached to that, and it's not just short and sweet.
Um,
Are you feeling better about this piece?
Yeah, I am. I'm just,
This is a meaty policy.
yeah, it is. Do you want it, okay. So students engaging, if you wanna scroll down to, consequences for harassment, yeah, there we are. Okay, students engaging in harassment, intimidation, or bullying will be subject to graduated consequences appropriate to the severity of the violation as determined by the board, school administrators, or designated personnel, depending upon the level of, don't we have a harassment, intimidation, and bullying policy
We do.
that states,
We do have that policy.
so,
Do you just wanna reference that policy?
well, I mean, I'm just trying to, I'm kind of curious why we even have this in here. Because,
That's what ISBA gave us, that's why it's
Mhm.
here.
yeah,
Are you pulling it? I was gonna pull it up right now.
okay, perfect, yeah.
If the internet works.
I know mine's.
Mine's working, I'm cruising along. Can you show me?
So it's 3295.
Okay, thank you.
It's a whole policy, and there's even procedures attached to it.
Right,
It's, not ISBA,
Oh.
it could be ISBA's, it would be ISBA's, but it's ours, the one that we currently have on our district website.
Oh, okay.
And you already have that pulled up, so if you go to policies at the top right there, and, scroll down, or no, it's right there. So there's and then there's the procedure. So in this one, could we just reference it? Can you see that, Alana? Or do you see
Yeah, it is
glare?
glary, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
okay, well, we do cross-reference on the bullying 23330, but it says students whose behavior is found to be in violation of this policy will be subject to discipline and graduated consequences up to and including expulsion consistent with the board's policy on student discipline. Third parties whose behavior is found to be in violation of this policy shall be subject to appropriate sanctions as determined and imposed by the superintendent or board. Students or third parties may also be referred to law enforcement officials. Okay, so this policy, okay, so what I'm wondering,
Are you on it? So on the hazing on 3295 for discipline, it says, students whose behavior is found to be in violation of this policy will be subject to discipline and graduated consequences up to and including expulsion consistent with the board's policy on student discipline.
okay. So that doesn't say that on there. So that's under hazing? Oh, wait.
That's,
Okay,
yeah, there's a little narrative about what the board expects and the board of trustees is committed to, so it's kind of a qualifier, and then it goes into discipline.
oh, right,
And
right.
then notification and the procedural piece.
Oh, there's.
And there's actually been a policy specific to the procedure.
Don't we have, check. Oh, wow, we don't even reference on here the procedure or form. On here.
On 3295.
Yeah, we should, it should be down under the,
And it was last reviewed on June 24th, 21.
yeah, it didn't get updated correctly. Do you wanna put a note that that's just a simple fix?
Do I need to can we just fix it, or does it have to come to the board?
No, it has to come to the board.
Okay.
If we're gonna alter anything, we
Okay.
need to just say,
So
these are
we're-
the changes that we were
Which policy are we adding, the
Well,
cross-reference?
3295,
Mhm.
under the cross-reference, it should also have the form and the procedure
Okay,
for cross-reference for people.
procedure, added the 3295, okay. So I'll add that in, and then, I won't bring it to, well, I'll bring it to our next meeting, and you guys can look at it and see if you're good with that, and then we can say if this is ready to go to the board.
Perfect.
Just a follow-up question to that, do you feel like that this one would need to go out to parents for parent input then, if you're deciding that one little piece?
Well, oh, it's right there, okay, the line isn't that, I don't know what is wrong with my foggy brain. Cause I'm like, we don't even talk about bullying on this policy, but we do, it's like way at the bottom.
Yeah.
Okay,
Because on June 24th, 2021, you would not have received any parent
Well,
input on that revision.
right, no, you're correct, but we're not, it's a clerical correction.
Right.
It's not a quantity or a quality or it's, thank you, correction. So the fact is that should be coming up,
Right.
like in July, because we have to start reviewing everything like we're supposed to.
We need to get to that. Okay.
It's a huge
so
undertaking.
I will add this cross-reference, I'll bring it to us, and then we're
Okay.
not gonna worry about the
Yeah.
piece of that
No.
right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Perfect.
so on here, student discipline for harassment, intimidation, cyberbullying, or bullying as defined by Idaho Code and district policy. It should be as so,
I feel like somewhere in here we need to reference, since it's literally the title of the other policy.
well, I think it needs to be, well, see, it's down here under the cross-reference. I don't think we need to, I think we should take this out.
Completely.
Yeah, cause it says students engaging in harassment, intimidation, or bullying will be subject to graduated consequences appropriate to the severity of the violation as determined by the board, school administrator, or designated personnel, depending on the level of discipline, which is already stated in that policy. Graduated consequences for bullying may include any of the above listed traditional or alternative discipline measures or a combination thereof in accordance with the nature of the behavior, the development age of the student, and the student's history of problem behaviors and performance. I believe that's on that policy as well.
Well, and for transparency purposes, I agree with you. I think, you know, if we don't have to include it, as much as we can let the policy be a standalone and we're cross-referencing it, the better, because if it's in 3 different versions, it either has to have the exact same language,
Exactly.
or it's causing, there isn't
Yeah.
clarity.
Yeah, so it's,
I agree.
You could have left the heading and just say, refer to policy, blah, 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 if you think, or just take it out and put the policy at the bottom.
it is at the bottom, the
Oh, it
policy
is?
is at the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
okay, yeah, then just
because-
scratch it out.
And strike through.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the policy,
It's right there.
Oh, we need to add, oh, okay.
So to this one, I need to add the procedure and the form as well.
Yeah.
yeah, we need
Okay,
it on
I'm gonna add
3330, yeah.
So for 3330, I need to add 3295's procedure and form.
Yeah.
So I'll add that in there.
I think it's called P 32 and
Yeah.
P.
Okay, gun-free schools. So the disciplining students on individual education or section 504 plans, we just say that we'll,
Can we, do a little skip-a-roo for a second? Because I guess my question is they added, which is new, and I said we didn't have this, so 3360 specifically talks about discipline of students with disabilities, which would fall under, the IEP and 504.
is that the 3360 that you, okay.
Yeah, so again, do we take this completely out, just like we did before? Do we reference it and just thinking, cause again,
And then 2360 was the one that we
It's
didn't
a
get the
special.
answer back from ISBA.
Well, they just
Oh,
said.
no, we had the little link
Yeah.
put in.
Yeah, and they
Okay.
said it's too extensive, so, yeah.
yeah. So, but just like we did before, if we're going to have, because this policy will be titled Discipline of Students with Disabilities, which is essentially what that says.
Mhm.
So I guess do we do the same concept, so we're doing, like, we're crossing through, or do we put a reference and then maybe on 3330, once you guys approve, 3360, then it's just cross-referenced at the bottom,
Yeah, 3360 means
if you like what we have.
right,
Mhm.
yeah, we would want to add
Right,
that here,
I just think for consistency,
exactly.
I like things really cool.
You know, it makes it so much easier when we have to correct things.
Yeah, I think as much as you can make it a standalone, the better off we are. So it's not found in 5 different places and then we're trying to figure out which ones it's.
I know, cause that's what's happened
Right.
is, that's why this is such a mess.
Right, here's an interesting thing. 331631. Let me go there just to make sure that this is.
Are you looking Idaho code?
I am, yeah.
So I added placeholders on the bottom here for the FFP.
Oh, perfect.
I just don't have it in front of me, I don't know what the names are.
Okay. That's perfect.
What's the names?
This is IDAPA, so,
Oh.
did we accidentally, go to title right there? Yep, so,
It's a 33, yep, and then 16.
you can type it in.
Oh, go up, what?
Yeah, just.
Oh, go to title 33. There you go. And then to 16.
Chapter 16.
Yeah.
And then, 1631. So it says district policy shall include a series of graduated consequences that may include, but are not limited to. So may include counsel, a referral to counseling, diversion, use of juvenile specialty courts, restorative practices, on-site suspension,
So that's actually.
and expulsion, yep, for any student who commits an act of bullying, intimidation, harassment, violence, or threats of violence.
So I guess my question, but that doesn't have to be in our 3330,
No.
it could be in our 3295, under the actual harassment and bullying one.
Right, well, and here's the thing, so then it says guidelines for such policies are set forth in the rules of the state board. Annually, school districts shall report the incidences, the district policy, and I don't know that ours does this, shall designate persons to whom bullying reports are to be made and procedures.
We do, it's Lisa.
Okay,
So the principals have a monthly report that, actually it's broken down by
Mhm.
harassment, bullying, and they have to update it monthly, and then she sends the whole thing to the
Yeah.
state.
I don't know if our policy says that though, so this says that we have to have that in policy. It shall designate the persons whom bullying reports are to be made, and a procedure for a teacher. So the board there again is tasked to come up with a policy and a procedure that sets this forth for the teacher, other school employees, students, so whomever is reporting it.
So we do have a policy for 3295, which is specific to the harassment,
Right.
intimidation, and bullying, so we do have that, and it gives definitions of each of those categories. And then, complaint procedures, it gives step by step, it looks
Yeah, I remember going through it, I don't know that we had this full knowledge here, but we
And
probably
then-
just took ISBA's info.
So in our 3295 though,
Mhm.
we do not,
Name who or how.
it just doesn't delineate out, like in code where it said specifically all of those things that
Yeah.
were listed in 3330, we don't have that in policy. It just
Mhm.
says, students whose behavior is found to be in violation of this policy will be subject to discipline and graduated consequences, up to and including expulsion consistent with the board's policy on student discipline, so the same thing that we talked
Mhm,
about.
mhm.
But it doesn't list all those, like, the
Yeah.
restorative
may
practices, like the
include-
3330 did, yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't have that.
Can we go to the procedure, the 95P?
On there too.
Go ahead and scroll down through. Okay. Alrighty then.
Okay, so if you can, roll back to page 2. I have made these new changes. Because I went to procedure, the 3295P, and we actually have defined
Definitions.
for thank you. What is wrong with me?
It's Friday.
I'm eating fruit. Yes, so I'm referencing, oh, no, I'll get it, please.
I don't mind,
I
you're
really
talking.
don't mind, but, I think it would be more important to reference back to our own policies than, I mean, not more important than referencing back to the statute, but for specificity, I mean, we could do like we've done down here where we've tossed in Idaho code, but then we have our own definition as well, so I don't know if we wanna take that.
I don't like that. Then it doesn't feel like an arbitrary definition.
Right. And we're telling people where we're coming from, you know?
Do you want a cookie? I think it.
Today's my good day.
It's actually your fork.
Oh,
And I'm being COVID friendly.
thank you. I wouldn't matter to me, thank you. So
That's good.
maybe even here, we should just,
But all of that language that we crossed out, will you go back to, no, leave it where it was, sorry. I'm saying it, where you have section at the fourth one, right there, yeah. Everything that we crossed out, Michelle, those listed, look at bullet 3. Those juvenile specialty courts, restorative, on-site, says district policies shall include a series of graduated consequences that may include but are not limited to. Do we have to have that?
no, it says may.
Okay.
No, it says shall, sorry, it says district policies shall include.
That may include.
A series of graduated consequences
That may.
that may include, so we have to list graduated consequences,
Right.
but they don't, I mean, it's subjective to referral to counseling, diversion, use of juvenile specialty, because the problem is
You can't control.
we can't control that. We can't say, you're going on diversion because you know, did something that we feel is grievous, but we can't call the police on, or we choose not to call the police on.
And I think anything that gets us out of subjectivity is the way to go, because
Yeah.
then it just needs, you can't be calibrated and it's not standardized, and that's where we get into trouble.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
just keep wondering if they even cover all those things under definitions. I mean, they should.
Um,
I like these changes on page 2, I think it's perfect.
cause I know when we did the procedure for 3295 specific, we took the definitions out of statute.
Yeah,
We didn't create them out.
so if you go back to page 4, do we wanna do the same concept and let disciplining students on individual education of section 504 just be cross-referenced with 3360 and we take it out completely?
I'm sorry, what?
Do we wanna take
section?
that part
Yes.
out and
Mhm.
just strike through? So that we're
I think so.
consistent?
Mhm.
That's what I think too. And then before we bring this to the board, we'll just make sure that you guys are good with 3360. Since it's cross-referenced and it's new and we don't have an active policy to that at this
Okay.
point.
That's fine. I wanna, so, harassment, bullying, and intimidation.
Does anybody know what a look-alike drug is?
Oh, what?
What?
Look-alike drugs?
I don't even know what a lot of drugs look like, so I'm not the person to ask.
Yeah. Number 9 says, way up at the top, but it says, using, possessing, distributing, purchasing, or selling illegal drugs or controlled substances, look-alike drugs, and drug paraphernalia. Like, what is a look-alike drug? I mean, somebody brings some hay and they're telling kids it's marijuana. I mean, what does it look like?
Or a vape pen or something?
Yeah, well, we specifically state vapes, but,
Oh.
I don't know.
But
what
are
it
they
is.
trying to act like it is something and it's sugar?
Right, or is somebody interpreting that it is and the kid's like, no, that's not, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Do you want me to call one of the administrators and ask them?
I'm just curious where they got the look-alike,
I think this is probably from ISBA,
yeah.
I don't know.
Which I guess you know, we do have, you know, in the world, people claim something to be some kind of illicit drug and it's not, so I guess maybe that's where, I just thought it was odd. Where was I, what am I looking for? Oh, no. Sorry. The grades all over the place this morning.
Yours and mine,
It's tired.
what the deal is.
So this in the policy and procedure. And then, this I can put a note.
I don't know if you're, you are watching me.
Well, for a while, just cause there's a little bit of glare, I'm like, is she writing in purple or is it red? Are we changing colors again?
Great. A new color.
You know,
Okay. Okay, so what I did was, since we're going to, I just listed those because that's over here.
again, if you make a change to 3295P, you don't have to change this, you just change
Correct.
P, but it's referenced.
Right.
That's perfect.
Oh, my bad. We have intimidation, not initiation. we don't define what initiation is, cause statute doesn't define it. Okay.
Are you saying like a gang initiation kind of thing?
Well,
Is that what
there's,
it's,
I think hazing has become the new definition for initiations.
yeah,
But it's not in this policy. Hazing is. Because even when you look at the definition for hazing in statute, it talks about initiations.
mm-hmm.
So I'm going to move this guy. To here. Most of that. Oh, come on. Give a gallery here. That's weird. So, yeah, cause if we can keep our policies clean, then we'll know.
We'll streamline the process,
Yes.
which is definitely a must. 'Cause
Yes,
there's
it
a lot
is.
of them, and a lot of them haven't been viewed since 2007.
Yeah, I know. Yes, I know.
I was telling Rosanna.
Yeah. It's not for lack of trying.
Yeah, there were some that went back to, older than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I think it was just maybe a copy and paste one, I don't know, there were some that were even scanned in, like they were
Yeah.
even,
Not capable.
yeah.
Okay.
It's very professional.
Okay, now the whole, gun-free schools. We have a policy for drug-free schools.
I feel like though this is federal,
Yeah.
It is,
and it's the actual,
yeah,
But I'm trying to see where else it's located.
yeah,
well, it's
They
the
thought-
Gun-Free Schools Act of 1994.
No. I thought we had our own policy.
yeah, I thought we did too.
But that's what I'm looking for and I don't
Oh,
see
it's
it.
some kind of weapon, dangerous weapons, or,
Or is it in this policy and that alone? Also,
It could
there's
be.
student rights, sexual harassment, hazing complaint, we have drug-free, we have gangs and gang activity, substance and alcohol.
Thank you for the fruit, Lynn.
You're welcome. I don't see anything on just separate for guns.
So maybe this is where we do our,
Mm-hmm.
which is fine, if that's the only place it's at.
I don't see it anywhere else.
hmm.
This is funny. And I know it's not our language, but, a student who possesses, uses, controls, or transfers a firearm, or any object that can reasonably be considered to be or look like a firearm, shall be expelled for a definite period of time of at least 1 calendar year. So what is it? Is it definite or is it not?
What is the actual federal?
There's a couple of them, one is a USC 18921 or something, and, but I thought we did have policy that spoke explicitly to that.
explosive and other deadly weapons.
I don't show there as a policy.
We don't, yeah, we don't have
I'm,
one.
I'm scrolling through ISBA and
I
I
didn't
don't,
see one either.
yeah. I
So
show
then I just went here,
3270,
so if you go to, 32, what
Okay,
is,
so we've always just
That's-
referenced the 3330. In this, that's where we've,
the gun-free,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, and the reason why I think it's so fresh in my mind is because of how
Of
much we've looked at it
everything,
this
yeah,
year.
Exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, this is. Are we gonna be discussing this email that we got from trustee Bing?
Did we get one today?
No, the one that we got. Yeah. I meant at a board meeting. this
Oh,
morning.
yeah, no,
Okay.
definitely at a board meeting, yes.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find I'm going, but this has been a very ineffective day.
We've made great progress.
3302D, that's where I'm trying to go in our statute.
D, you say?
Yes, 33. Oh, I lied, it's 183302.
Oh.
It's Title 33, it's Title 18.
Okay.
Been there a few times.
Yep. So what are we trying to find here?
I'm curious,
You're looking for definition for something?
actually, I'm just looking for language because
Okay.
I wanna make sure what we're saying
Oh, yeah.
is what's in the statute.
Right.
Uh-huh. 33B.
Why? Why? Oh.
You too. I can't sit any longer.
There we are, came back. Um,
What language are you looking for? What are you trying to tackle?
What, I just want to, it's bugging me, this whole definite period of at least 1 year.
That's out of the USC well, I think we reiterate it, Idaho reiterates it in our statute, but that's, from the feds.
Definitely at least, because either it's definitely or it's at least.
Well, maybe, just depends.
Well, that's why I wanna say, if it's in the statute, then fine, I've got.
Okay, this is what it says
Let's
under,
change it.
federal guidelines. Each state receiving federal funds under any subchapter of this chapter shall have an effect, a state law requiring local educational agencies to expel from school for a period of not less than 1 year a student who is determined to have brought a firearm to a school or to have possessed a firearm at a school under the jurisdiction of local educational agencies in that state, except that state law shall allow the chief administrative office of a local agency to modify such expulsion requirement for a student on a case-by-case basis if such modification is in writing.
For a minimum.
Where are you reading that?
I pulled this from federal code, gun-free requirements.
So but what is the site that's,
I went to Cornell Law School.
okay, yeah. I just can't find that language, you just read under the same spot, I don't see.
So,
At the very top,
Mm-hmm.
where it says in general requirements,
Yeah, I don't have that, I must be on a different reference that they have for it.
I just pulled it from our policy, what was listed, when it says gun-free expectations or requirements.
Yeah, I'll just go over here and pull it up.
okay, I'm obviously, I'm just looking at the act doesn't seem to got that.
Yeah, it's not very clear.
Okay, so, then let's jump back over to our land. Just, shall be expelled for a minimum, period.
I guess my question is do you have to even put the minimum of a year on there if it's by a case-by-case basis, cause you're gonna do a case-by-case basis in implementation regardless.
Well, you just read something that said it has to be a minimum of 1 year. What were you reading?
It just says that the statute has to say something about that, but then it gives you the case by case, so in our policy, do we have to list that 1 year? Or could we just list that the board can modify?
Well, it does, what we state, which I have to change this language, trying my best, shall be expelled for a definite period of time, at least 1 calendar year. The board, however, may modify
Yeah.
the expulsion period. But, so shall be expelled for.
Yeah, cause there's something missing here, so the federal statute didn't have the case-by-case basis, right?
It did.
Oh, it did,
Uh-huh.
because there's another statute.
But it didn't use it as that language, it said,
Yeah, that case,
it said, oh, it does say case by case, it says to modify such expulsion requirement for a student on a case by case basis if such modification is in writing.
yeah, hold on, let me see.
Under, this Title 18, Chapter 33, there's a section. When it's talking about the possession of weapons, and down below, it talks about the penalties. And I just question if, because of the penalties of guilty, misdemeanor, 1 year, if that is the basis for the policy being a year. I don't know if
No,
you like it or
there's
not.
They're talking specifically about an 18-year-old.
yeah, in the portion
In
you're
that one
referencing.
part.
Yeah, the portion in the policy is, the federal law, but I also thought that there was something in our state statute too that, is,
This one talks about
Um,
students.
yeah, a minimum of 1 year.
Mhm.
Or it says I thought it said it must expel, but on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, this doesn't talk about expulsion at all.
Yeah, that's what the 1 year is referencing the expulsion. It should be, shall be expelled for, this says a definite period of time of at least 1 calendar year.
Yeah, see, when you try to pull it up, it just goes to 1830,
Yeah.
3302D, which is, Michelle already pulled that up.
Right, yeah, I thought there was another, because there
Which
is.
is what you already had up, Rosanna.
Well, when we say 1 calendar year, what are we meaning by that? Because to me, a calendar year is January through December. But if you,
In the education world, it feels like it's September to June,
right, but
but a
You
true calendar would be,
January through December. So my struggle with putting 1 calendar year or even 1 academic year.
it's the interpretation.
Exactly, because to me, if we're expelling a child from, for 1 year, and we're expelling him in February, then he comes back to school, next February.
Right, but a parent could think it's the next school year.
Right.
Right.
So either it's 1 year, meaning 12 months, or it's a calendar year, meaning if you fall in between, I mean, I don't know, it just, so I wanna just say 1 year.
I think that's cleanest.
And then,
Because then you can, in your guys' determination, when you meet, you can decide that, like, when is this, is there a review process where you look at it and make a determination? Are you actually saying, we'll review this again in September? Is it truly a year? And I think that's when you do the case by case, you guys can make those decisions.
Right.
Based on whatever the situation is.
So
Federal
here's
code just
this
says
one
1 year.
here, 33205. I don't know, did you guys look at this one? Denial of school attendance, it talks about expulsion here. So
For a period of not less than 1 year,
Mhm.
so,
12 calendar months.
Yeah.
Firearms,
I mean, 12 calendar months feels different to me than calendar year.
yeah.
It's back to a February to February.
right,
Yeah, and the federal statute says 1 year.
So
So-
that's the cleanest way to do it,
Yeah.
what Michelle put.
Should we reference that?
33,205.
Yeah. Yeah, because the student's presence is not detrimental to the health and safety of other students. Yeah, I think we should put that in there, and it does talk about 504 language, which we also talk about. What do you guys think? I think it would, I think
Do you
it's
want it referenced in
applicable.
the narrative, or do you want it just on the bottom?
On the bottom, I think. So what do you think, Michelle, or should we put it in the narrative?
I'm sorry, put what in the.
This reference, this 33,205, or just at the bottom. I know you referenced some, oh no, you referenced policy. Yeah, we just put it at the bottom.
Okay.
33,205,
Yeah.
it is already there.
Oh, is
The
it?
legal reference 33,205, denial of school attendance.
Oh, okay, cool,
Okay,
perfect.
so yeah, I did. Where am I at? Under the gun-free school zone, I took out, the word however. So, a student who uses, possesses, controls, or transfers a firearm or any object that can reasonably be considered to be or look like a firearm shall be expelled for a period of not less than 1 year. The board may modify the expulsion period on a case-by-case basis as determined by the outcome of an expulsion hearing. I think that needs to be added. I don't want it to appear that we're just willy-nilly doing, not that anybody ever would, but it, I think we need to be
That's,
clear.
well, that's how it happens.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it doesn't say that.
Again,
So,
I think any language that takes out the subjectivity of it
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
the right way to go, because then it doesn't feel like it's targeted,
right. Shall notify the appropriate level.
because that's how you do it.
Yeah. Okay, these two.
It's really slow right now.
I had to get on my phone.
Curious, Ramona, on the, and scrolling down to, cause my brain is just not working today. Possession of a weapon on school property, where we say firearm means any firearm as defined by Idaho State Code. Do we also want to identify that such term does not, include, what's that, antique guns? Or do you think that's opening the door for something?
Yeah, I think we just,
Leave it as that?
we can, Yeah, where is that sort of time?
Scroll up,
Oh, there it is, I see. Go down one more, sorry.
scroll down, sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
oh, so it shouldn't
Keep
be,
scrolling.
Scroll.
I see right there, in accordance with, sorry.
Keep scrolling.
Keep scrolling.
Keep scrolling, there we go, woo, right there. Because we, put language in there for
Oh.
delayed determination,
Right,
because that's a dangerous, you know,
but the response is not a mandatory expulsion.
correct.
Yeah, I think that's fine, right there.
Okay,
Because that is where the definition is, although I'm not sure that we reference, all of the rabbit trails. Eighteen, 921 is the definition, but I'm not sure that those,
okay,
because I think that same statement needs to be made, up above where we were also. Right there, where it says any student subject to an expulsion, entitled to a hearing before the board, oh, well, entitled to, okay, never mind. Yeah, I think it's right there.
okay, so if you scroll down, keep going to the bottom of page 5. Oh, right there, okay, so scroll up just a smidge, okay. This little blue paragraph,
This was
you
the
scroll down, so
policy.
it was, no, scroll up, sorry, yeah, okay. So, I recall the red language was because we were trying to capture what actual processes are that we're using, not just throwing words on the paper.
Right.
So, the blue language, and the building administration is able to determine the absence of any intent by the student, may refer for a re-entry hearing before district office administration. The outcome of the hearing, which will include a signed behavior contract, shall be presented to the Board of Trustees at the next regularly scheduled board meeting, which has never happened in my time. At that time, the board may hold an expulsion in abeyance and approve the recommended disciplinary action presented by district office administrations. So, so we've changed it so that if there is a re-entry contract, then the student comes before the board, and if, the action requires suspension, then the student shall come before the board for an expulsion hearing.
Well, so the context of this conversation, because remember, like, the previous one didn't say anything about the investigative process.
Right.
And I talked about all of that,
Right.
and we just said that, we were going to try to be more clear that, like I said, okay, so a first grader brings in that little pocket knife from grandpa. Are we gonna define what warrants a re-entry contract? I mean, we're supposed to, or we have in the past, it was kind of a show cause.
Right.
But are we saying that the re-entry contract goes in front of the board because those are the more severe things, but when there's zero intent, then it's handled at the building level? So we kind of got stuck kind of on that conversation of, is that what we're saying? So when there's no intent, again, you have to report it if it's a gun, but now we're just talking about, because Ramona said, remember, anything can be used as a knife, but
Right.
when kids, and when it's innocent, then it's not a reentry, but if there's intent with it, then we are saying it's a reentry, and then that's coming before the board.
Well, I think my perspective was anytime people are signing and entering into a contract, that needs to come before the board, so the
Okay.
board's fully aware of what we're doing out there.
That's the contract, yeah.
Yeah, because it's this whole contract, I mean, a contract is a legally binding document, and it's not it should not be taken, lightly, willy-nilly, like, it's just what we do. I think it loses its importance. So if whatever behavior has occurred requires the child and the parent to enter into a contract to put their child back in school, that needs to come before the board.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Okay, but on that notion, so 2 questions. What if the reentry contract is not mean that they're out of school? So again, it's the little kid with the knife.
then how can it be called a reentry?
Well, that's what we talked about, that we weren't gonna call it that, we could
Okay.
change that.
Okay,
But the practice has always been, it is a show cause or a reentry, so that was part of the language. We said if we're entering a reentry contract because there has been a removal from either in school or out of school, and they're coming back in, because the definition of reentry, right? There's been a removal, then it was gonna come to the board, but we were gonna call it something different if there's no contract signed, it's not you're not being removed, but we're definitely calling parents, there's no intent kind of a thing. Then we're just, it's a behavior and it's an incident, and we document it in Skyward, but we're not having them do a contract of any kind. I want clarity on that, just to make sure. And the first grade is the example that comes up to my mind.
okay.
They bring a little pocket knife to school. In the past, we had to do a reentry contract. You're saying we're not.
Okay, but this, and maybe I'm thinking outside of the scope here. Because this is all under the possession of a weapon on school property. And we're saying, any person who possesses, carries, or stores a weapon in a school building or on school property, except as provided below, shall be referred to law enforcement and face disciplinary action by the district. The board may grant persons and entities permissions to carry. In the event a deadly or dangerous weapon, firearm, or other harmful objects are brought to school or found on school property but not reported, the building administration will proceed with its investigative processes and notify district administration of the event or occurrence. Parents shall be informed before any investigative process begins. After the investigative process has been completed, building administration will confer with the parent of the student regarding any necessary discipline action. If the disciplinary action requires a re-entry contract, then a student shall come before the board for a student hearing. In the event that the disciplinary action requires suspension, then a student shall come before the board for an expulsion hearing. Okay, so what am I missing?
I guess for me, it's that clause that says the term does not include a pocket knife with a blade of less than 2.5.
Well,
Would you still feel like that innocent situation has to come to a?
but that's not a deadly or dangerous weapon, and it's not a firearm.
Right.
This paragraph is specific to deadly or dangerous weapons and firearms. So,
I guess I'm just saying, you're right in all of that, but in the past, we were required to do that, so I just wanna clarify now, we're saying we're not, because under this definition, it's not a dangerous weapon, so
Well, it's never
excuse
been a
from that.
dangerous weapon.
Right,
right, so, okay, so let me,
does that make,
no, let me,
okay,
so you're asking if little Johnny comes with his little pocket knife that Grandpa gave him because he was a good boy, and he's got it in his pocket, and it's like, oh, Johnny's got a pocket knife. That's not a deadly or dangerous weapon,
Right.
and it's not a firearm, obviously. But the way I would envision it, and I'm not an administrator, is I'd be like, Johnny, cough it over, I'll give it to you after school.
right,
Johnny goes back to class,
where's the purpose or the need for a reentry contract?
I would agree with you.
Okay, so, but I guess, probably ask this is, are there administrators that would feel, well, that requires a reentry contract because we need to remove Johnny from the school, call him mom, get the Swiss Army knife out of the Swiss Army, out of the whole school, I mean,
So there has been, we have been, in the past, we have, in that scenario, we call the parents come and get it. We will let the kid go back to class with
Okay.
it, but we still put it on, we document that it was, and they
Okay.
signed a contract, so there's always a contract.
contract.
That's what I'm saying, I just want, when the elementary principals ask me, I'm gonna say no more contracts for that unless there was intent.
Well, I mean,
But again, a 5-year-old with, I mean, do they understand that, you know what I mean, so.
I do,
That's the
my
part.
whole thing is this contracts, I think we're so
Right.
heavily driven by, oh,
Right.
yes,
I would rather
stop
not
it.
have to do that, but in the past, we had to do it, so we documented that there was a knife brought to school, whether intent was there or not,
Okay,
and we called parents, so your scenario, exactly what you said, I think is the logical and the best approach from a common sense standpoint to do it that way.
okay, what was the intent by having administration create these reentry contracts because of this little pocket knife that Johnny brought to school? Well, why did we get there? We don't know.
I don't
Okay.
know, it's always been that way, so I can't tell you.
Okay, I mean,
You know, is it just to stress the importance that you can't do this at school? I mean, and so that parents are aware of it and the parents come and get it, but that's just.
well, I mean, if the school
practice.
is like, if you have an administrator that's like, I'm not gonna be responsible for that, I'm calling your mom, they're coming to pick it
Yeah.
up, that's totally fine. But this
The need for this contract, I guess.
is driving me nuts because the child hasn't been removed from school. So he doesn't need to re-enter school, he's still there.
Right,
So,
Right.
I mean, and if we're documenting it in Skyward, if
yeah,
we're doing our due diligence to show that, you know,
right,
Johnny brings this pocket knife every time he spends the night at Grandma and Grandma's house, well, that's a conversation we have to have with parents and say,
Right.
this has to stop or there will be.
I
fear.
am 100%
I mean,
in agreement with you, I just wanna make sure that I'm clear that that's your interpretation of it, cause in my mind, reentry defines a removal, and if we're not removing,
right, we shouldn't be
Right.
contracting with these little
Right.
kiddos.
but so then the caveat to that, my next question is so we have a little guy that's really struggling with behaviors, and, you know, we put him on a behavior plan, because, and this is not like, obviously through the IEP, there's signatures attached to the IEP, but this is just a little guy that's struggling. He's doing a lot of hitting when he's out of recess, we're bringing parents in, parents are always a part of that process, but we document so that everyone's clear about how we're supporting the student, all the positives that we're doing, but then if things happen, what our consequences. Parents are always a part of the development of that process, they do sign a contract.
Is the issue the term contract?
Yes.
Can you change it to agreement or
We
plan?
call it a behavior plan, we don't call it a contract, but
But that's
To
not a
your point.
re-entry.
it's not a reentry, but
Right.
when you said if you're signing something, and we do have them sign those plans, and it's more for, we're just ensuring that everybody saw the plan and that, you know, we're not putting something in place that the parents aren't comfortable with.
Right, and I remember, I don't know how it goes nowadays, but back in the day, or 100 years ago when I was in school, I mean, you brought your report card home, your parent had to sign it, you had to take it back, and that's not a contract, that's
Right.
just an understanding that, hey, I've looked at this.
That question will come to me,
So-
so I wanted to bring it up to you and ask that question. In my mind, we're saying, when it comes to the board, it is a contract. It's not just a plan or something that we're having parents look at.
Right,
And
and
this
I
is
mean,
really about, you're saying that you're gonna do these pieces, and you're saying you're gonna do these pieces. So everybody is responsible for something, that's a contract.
right,
There's shared ownership
Well,
of it.
yeah, there's more, yeah.
Well, that could be a plan too, because I don't want us to get hung up on the words.
Okay,
Being that I don't know what the plan language
Involves.
says and what they're signing to.
right,
We cannot say that it's not a contract because we've never seen it. The board's never seen a behavioral plan, neither, I mean, you know, I know there's gonna be a fine line. People are gonna say we're in the weeds, but the bottom line is the board's supposed to approve all of this because our governance is to look out for, as as much as we can, any kind of legal liability, and to circumvent that thing. But if the board's never seen one, like, how do we even know? We could call this a reentry plan and get rid of the word contract, and then what? It's just a plan. I mean, but I do agree with everything that's been discussed here. I think that we need to make this extremely clear to, maybe when we send this out, suggest that the public, the parents, whomever are looking at this, that they come back and maybe tell them what the clip is where we had this discussion. Or maybe, and I think we need to discuss it with the board too. Because I don't think that it was, not only that, I don't want there to be a double jeopardy on the students.
Right.
Because depending on their temperament, I mean, they could just brush it off their shoulder, but if they're already, oh my gosh, I brought the knife, I'm a horrible kid, and now we're making them sit down and, you have a 20-minute discussion, which is like 500 hours to a little kid, and then they're signing papers and all. I mean, to me, that's inducing trauma that's not necessary.
Right.
So I'm with you. I think it needs to be documented, call the parents, hey, blah, 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 and we just go on and don't make it a big deal. I think a lot of stuff gets made into a really big deal that should not be.
Well, that's why I just wanted to delineate that out, that there is, there are tons of innocent scenarios.
Yeah.
We can't, there's no way to make an exhaustive list of all of those
Right,
things.
exactly.
So we don't wanna take common sense out of the mix, and so
Right,
we're
absolutely.
allowing that, and then, in my mind, again, to your point with the reentry contract and the words, reentry is where I feel like if we're saying that we're removing a kid, then, okay, yes, it's a bigger deal.
Right,
And
it's
it's,
huge,
and it's
right.
through the lens of weapons and
Right.
guns, and,
Right,
this
right.
isn't just some random disciplinary,
Right.
it's,
Right.
this is it warrants a serious, so, again, that going to the board, but when we talked about that, we do a lot of plans where it's just, we don't even have to do a signature, it's just on the form, and honestly, we use a couple of different forms, but it's really just so there's transparency with what we're doing, so if we're supporting the student with executive functioning support, that's out of the norm, we just wanna make sure parents know what we're doing. And so
Which they
that's
should
why,
know.
right,
Yeah.
that's why, and so they're a part of that, it doesn't happen without that consent, but it doesn't have to be a written, it could be verbal, because it's always a meeting.
Right.
It's not even just a phone call, it's most of the time it's a meeting unless the parent can't come in.
Right.
So, I just wanna be really clear and transparent about some of our practices, so that it doesn't come up later and you're like, well, we didn't know,
Right, no, I
So-
know that. Well, just.
Yeah, I think we're all on the same page,
Yeah.
to tell you the truth.
Okay.
I think we all think the same thing. I mean, now if little Johnny's got the knife out chasing
Yeah.
people trying to stab him, but
Right.
that's not just the.
Right. But, like, we've had situations where the kid finds it, because that's the
Right.
other piece, it's
Right.
public property at the end of
Right.
school days, and, it's not closed off to the public, and so we've had lots of, kids find all kinds of stuff, and the
Yeah.
custodians try to do a walk around,
Sure.
but our playgrounds are ginormous, they don't catch everything, and so the kids will find it, they're playing with it, and there's no intent, it wasn't brought,
Right.
it was found, and it's a 5-year-old, like, that inquisitive nature, they're absolutely going to pick it
Yeah.
up.
Yeah, or even if you get to the older, 5th grade, 6th grade,
Well, yeah.
sometimes it's a cool thing, right? You can be a
100%,
cool guy,
right, right.
Yeah.
Well, and, some of them wanna keep it too,
Yeah.
so they're just like, it's mine, finders keepers.
Yeah.
So, for sure, but there's no ill intent, they're not trying
Right,
to,
right.
you can't have video games that we have in this day and age and not expect that kids aren't gonna play around with some of that, like, that's going to happen, and the heart of it's not a bad thing, they're being kids, it's what they do.
Right, well, they've always done it. I mean,
Right,
even before
right.
video games and the music and all that, it's in our
Right,
psyche,
right, right.
to do,
Right.
those things.
So,
Yeah, I'm good, I'm good with that.
Okay,
I
so
don't wanna
then,
be over the top and with little, with kids and not
yeah.
recognize that they're kids and,
Well, and I think when you get to the secondary level, there's a whole lot more
right,
that goes into the perspective than when you're dealing with
absolutely.
elementary.
Mhm.
So,
Yep,
or that could go into it, it doesn't necessarily have to.
right, that could be another layer.
Right,
For
okay.
sure.
So,
What's the the governing board?
I don't know, it was blue language, that means it came from ISBA, I think?
No, that means it was from the existing policy.
Oh, okay, existing, so,
They scratched that.
Yeah, a person or an employee of the school or district who is authorized to carry firearm with the permission of the board of trustees.
Maybe they used to call themselves the governing board.
I don't even know what that would. Alright, delegation of authority. We're
That
almost
was
done.
my highlight, just cause I didn't like any.
Okay. Each teacher or any other school personnel, comma, when students are under his or her charge, is authorized to impose any disciplinary measure. Let's put that cap back on your head. Other than suspension, expulsion, corporal punishment, but we've already said we're not imposing corporal punishment.
Right.
Why do they do that?
Because they're ninnies, because we say that, right? We're not doing corporal punishment.
Yep, it specifically says no
Yeah,
employee or
yeah.
blah, 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 whatever, yeah.
I don't even know at what point, like, when did they even do that?
What's
Corporal
that,
punishment.
corporal punishment? And they did it when I was in school.
When I was in school too,
Yeah.
actually, when I was, yeah.
Well,
When my husband was in school,
we slap your knuckles.
yeah, you could get
I
a
don't ever
swat.
remember that.
I was never swatted, but I mean,
I don't
I
remember
saw other
ever that
kids
ever
that happened
happened.
to.
Yeah, my husband does.
So does mine, but I mean, I was.
I should ask mine.
Yeah.
Maybe he does.
I just remember in elementary school, my principal was like 6'5". And so he was just so intimidating because he was so huge. It's like nobody wanted to go to the principal's office. He was super scary because he was so big.
Yeah, I had a parent with their own set of rules, and those were the rules everybody followed when it came to the children.
Oh. So,
Each teacher, when students are under his or her charge, is authorized to impose any disciplinary measure. Do we even need to have that?
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
think we need that entire paragraph.
Which is appropriate and in accordance with this policy, rules on student discipline. Teachers may remove students from classrooms for disruptive behavior. Well, isn't that,
That's old policy, it's been there for a long time.
right?
It's in both, it's in ISBA and in our old one.
Conduct continuously disruptive school discipline or the instructional effectiveness of the district. So yeah, we don't need that paragraph. Do you think we need it, Ramona? I don't think it says anything necessarily, because this is I mean, if they're disruptive, then it's.
It's stated in so many places, I think
Yeah.
every student handbook has it, every school has it, I mean, it's a,
One, the reality is you're not authorized to impose any disciplinary measures.
Yeah.
yeah, and it, yeah, exactly,
And
the
if you're removing a
delegation.
student from, the classroom, that admin is 100% involved.
Yeah.
There's those that's.
That is a pet peeve of mine, just so you know.
I was told.
ISBA puts in everything though, so you'll find
It's because it's written by
they're
lawyers.
just littered through about the whole thing.
Lawyers are the only people that I know that can write a paragraph and it's one sentence.
My word. Can you think of anything else to put in there?
Can we take that section out?
Yeah, I agree.
bunch of nonsense words.
Yeah. I just have a problem with being apologetic when nobody, it's a piece of paper, nobody's accused you of doing anything.
Right.
Yeah. Potential marital status?
Do we have to delineate this? I mean, can't
I
we
would
just
say,
say
do we even need
the
it?
district will ensure student discipline is enforced in a non-discriminatory manner?
Yeah.
Period?
Yeah.
I mean, what if we forget somebody, or what if somebody interprets something different, or,
I just think you're opening Pandora's box.
yeah, I mean, we all know we're governed by all kinds of laws anyways when it comes to that, so,
Sometimes people just wanna put so much and it's like, it's just a simple.
yeah, let's not make it more than it has to be.
A summarized version.
Mhm.
What does that mean?
Oh, I don't know what that means.
I don't understand.
Yeah, I think this is one of those, annual,
It is.
Right, it says this shall be reviewed annually.
right, but it's supposed to go home with the students every year too, so I don't know that it, yeah, there you go.
And it's actually in the handbooks.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Strike it out.
Get too much information.
Well, the thing is we're not gonna modify the verbiage.
Right.
For the elementary kiddos, it's like, your parents are reading this, they need to understand this.
Well, the law isn't modified based on.
No.
Oh, but it should be.
So I still feel like, I know we're done with this policy and you were going to lunch and, right? I don't feel like we can take this out for public comment yet until everyone's had a chance to look at
Sure.
3360. So do we wanna bring that, are we continuing to work or you guys got stuff to do?
No, we're good with close. I mean, I'm fine with that.
Only because we've cross-referenced it here and so
Right.
we're going to, so we literally don't have that policy yet,
No, I know
so
we don't.
are you comfortable with that? And I'll hold off, or do you want me to send it out for public?
Well, I believe it can be sent out for public
Okay.
comment, cause I believe we can go through 3360.
Oh, yeah, we did start on this.
On 3360. Yeah, we crossed it all out. Yeah, cause it,
The only thing I don't like about 3360 is I don't like having the outline in there, the table of contents, I just think it makes it look funny. But it does give, for transparency
Oh, I see what
purposes,
you're
I
saying.
referenced it at the bottom, cause we
Right.
talked about adding that.
Mm-hmm.
So it tells them exactly where they could go to find it, and we can put the link, or it's in there, so.
yeah, no, I like having the link in there. I don't know that we need the table of contents.
We just talked about it, so I put it in, but the idea that you guys could give input and say yea or nay.
Well, you could say, please see the Idaho Special Education Manual, chapter 12, discipline, period.
Right.
And tick all that off. Cause I really don't think it's beneficial.
Yeah,
I think it looks weird.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
so
what I like.
this is where that document would come into play, because I outlined all this, I can make myself
And I did not change any language, like I pulled it directly from the manual,
Okay,
so,
well, that's fine. I mean,
yeah. I just kind of, some of them I just picked the stuff that I felt like was really pertinent.
Yeah, that would be good.
so. Because it probably would be beneficial for us to pull up the actual
Well-
manual and you guys to look at it too, to see if there's anything that you think is pertinent that I didn't.
Right, well, and you could just put, a little side note that, under cross-reference 3360 is in the process of being
Yeah.
renewed or created.
I'm just gonna say being revised. Well, actually, it's not revised.
Right,
It's
'cause we don't
created
have it.
because we don't have it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we can blow this out next week easily.
Yeah. But you guys are good with me, so I will take out I'll make a copy of this because this is the actual one that will go to the board.
Right.
I'll make a copy of this, change everything to black, take out all the strike-throughs, and then this will be and it says draft on it, this will be
Correct.
the one that goes out for parent comments.
Perfect.
And then hopefully we'll get some and, we can bring it next week and see how many we have, and then as
Yeah.
we continue to get a little bit more, but at the point when we are saying it's going in front of the board, I'll turn off the comment section.
Okay.
Does that work?
Yeah.
So 3330 is going for public comment.
Yes. And so you're gonna put 3330 on the agenda under the policy section for, the board meeting on the 11th or whatever it is.
And at the very beginning, when we first talked, I don't know that we were recording at that time, we talked about the out-of-district, conversation around 3010,
Mhm.
specific to reach, so
And
that'll
I-
also go to the board.
Yeah, I did ask her to make a note for that.
I just wanted, it was 3010, that's the actual policy.
Oh, okay, yes, because I don't think I gave you the policy number, did I? Okay.
We're speaking the same language.
Okay, so if you wanna go ahead and stop recording, you can, because we'll be,
Right.
just be done.